I'd like to call to order the Middletown City Council meeting for Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. Happy Tax Day. If we can please start with a moment of meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands, one
nation, under God, indivisible, with
liberty and justice.
Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Farrell.
Here.
Ms. Nenny.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Muederspaw.
Here.
Mayor Condrey.
Here. The first thing we have this evening is a presentation for Arbor Day proclamation. If we have any, I don't know, park board members in the house, or Allie, if you have something you wanted to, I know I have something to read, but if you guys want to do more, that would be great. Oh, there's a presentation. Okay, great. Hello. Well, yeah, let's kick it off. Yeah, okay. All right, well, we have a proclamation from City Council. If you guys want to maybe just stand next to me, we can maybe I'll do it together facing the lovely citizens of Middletown. Okay, whereas this year we're celebrating 150 years of Arbor Day, which was first observed in 1872, with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas from backyards to tropical rainforests, trees around the world are hard at work providing the necessities of life. Trees clean our air and water, provide habitat for wildlife, connect communities, and support our health and well-being. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. Trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas, while most holidays celebrate something that has already happened and is worth remembering, Arbor Day represents a hope for the future. The simple act of planting a tree represents a belief that the tree will grow to provide us with clean air and water, cooling shade, habitat for wildlife, healthier communities, and endless natural beauty, all for a better tomorrow. Now, therefore, I, Nicole Condrey, Mayor of the City of Middletown, Ohio, do hereby proclaim April 28th, 2023 as Arbor Day in the City of Middletown. And I urge all citizens to support efforts to protect and nurture our trees and urban forests, not just for the beauty they provide, but for the benefits they give our residents and community. So thank you guys for all you're doing for our city. Thank you, Allie. And I'm not sure who to leave this with. Matt.
Yep, thank you.
Great.
Get
Thank
to
you
hold
very
it
much.
for a few days.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Great. We look forward to your presentation.
All right, well, we'll hit it off. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit here amongst you.
Yeah. So that, as part of our Arbor Day proclamation, we also just earned our 16th year as Tree City USA.
Allie, can you use that microphone? I just know on YouTube we won't be able to hear it
Sorry.
otherwise.
I'm not very loud, my bad. And our 5th Growth Award, so 16th year Tree City USA, 5th Growth Award. The Arbor Day proclamation helps us reach and achieve our 4th standard, which is part of being a Tree City USA. We just wanted to thank council and city residents for helping us achieve that through the different programs we have throughout the city. With that, as part of our different programs, we also have Earth Day Arbor Day celebration coming up. I'm going to invite Doris Roberts with Keep Middletown Beautiful to kind of speak a little bit about that.
Hi, our Earth Day Arbor Day celebration is going to be Saturday, April 22nd, and it's going to be a community-wide cleanup. This is our 33rd year of doing a community-wide cleanup. It will be from 9 till noon, and then there'll be lunch given to the volunteers who come out and join us. And as mentioned before, there'll be an Arbor Day tree planting at 11:30 at the city building. This year, we made goals of getting 100 volunteers and collecting 50 bags of recycles to emphasize recycling. I'm proud to say that we have 150 people signed up so far, so we've reached that goal. And I hope we're looking forward to meeting and seeing everyone out Saturday. After the cleanup, we have a lot of activities planned here at the city building. There's going to be a scavenger hunt. Steve Lewis is going to give a tree pruning class. Their library is going to be here. There's going to be yoga. We're going to have prizes, and we're going to give away 50 pollinator bushes in honor of June Pollinator Month. If you want more information, all you have to do is go to our website, keepmiddletownbeautiful.org.
And so a part of our Arbor Day celebration also is the Middletown Community Tree Giveaway that we just kind of put on. So far, all the reservations have been filled. We'll be doing pickup dates that Saturday as well as Sunday and Monday, and there is a wait list. Through the program, we were able to give away 118 trees to 20 different species. And these trees help us, help the city grow its urban canopy. And this has many different benefits, from stormwater mitigation to reducing the urban heat island, to sequestering carbon and reducing air pollution. So we wanted to thank Pilot Chemical, who donated $5,000, which allowed us to help purchase the trees, along with OKI Regional Council of Governments and Natorp's Nursery, who helped supply the trees. So as part of our urban canopy, we wanted to bring to you guys something that's kind of coming to the forefront of urban forestry, and similar to the EAB, we're seeing a new invasive insect that's called the spotted lanternfly. And I'm going to let Steve Lewis, our park board chairman, speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, I jacked that all up for you guys. Sorry, made it confusing.
My back, of course, probably everyone wants to see my back, not my face. Good evening, council. I'll try and keep this brief, but I just want to thank you for having us down. We hope as a park board to come down maybe and be a little more present, since the conversation has been of bringing some money into our parks and helping to maybe bring up the status of how they look and the safety of them, and we appreciate all the thoughts and the efforts to try and get that done. There's a lot going on this time of month, but I'll get to this. This is like my fourth or fifth presentation with an insect or a pest that is affecting a lot of the eastern part of the country. So the spotted lanternfly is a insect, of course, from China, the Asian countries. I'll leave it at that. And basically, it's attacking all forms of trees and vines. The grape industry, the wine industry is really freaking out. There's actually quite a bit of grapes and vineyards in Pennsylvania, northern Ohio, a lot of new strands. Something very close to my heart is, of course, IPA beers. They hit hops plants very, very hard. The information on this can be found in several different parts of the Ohio Department of Agriculture and Natural Resource website. I would encourage everyone, in fact, we're going to ask the general public to help us in trying to identify if we have them in Butler County. The primary host of this pest is what we call tree of heaven. Tree of heaven is similar in the leaf form of a walnut, but it's also kind of just an invasive, not a real desirable plant, very soft wood. You'll see them growing out of the crack next to a building. They're very durable, but it is one of the main hosts for this pest. It was first detected, just so we get a timeline on that, in 2014. Kind of when EAB, emerald ash borer, was peaking and kind of going out the door to a point. It's not a very strong flyer. We call it a plant hopper or a leaf hopper. Obviously, there's the family name and the species, but then they categorize insects and weevils and those names. So this hopping They use their wings, but literally they'll jump and just pop over to another part of the limb. So we didn't know really what was going on, where they were at other than in Pennsylvania. And sure enough, we got confirmation in Cuyahoga and Jefferson counties up north. And in November, a small population, which I want to say was it on a train, cars? The egg masses were on train cars in Cincinnati. I'll finish my sentence. It was found in Cincinnati. So these guys are like laying their eggs on all types of surfaces. Where emerald ash borer, we were very concerned about transporting firewood into other locations. And that's when we got quarantines. That's for this pest as well. Is it on the wood, not necessarily in the wood, with its egg mass? The lanternfly will lay eggs beginning in October through the beginning of the winter. The egg masses are small. If you're familiar with wasps that maybe put what we call mud daubers, and they'll put laces of mud up and down on like brick or concrete, and then they're putting their eggs and their larvae, that too is what these will mask or look like. And there can be a little trickiness to, well, is that a mud dauber, or is this what we're looking for in spotted lanternfly? So it takes a little bit of an eye to tell that difference. As you can see, though, you'll see the different stages of the nymph, and then as it starts to get bigger, then it will get into the winged form. Some of these, which I know several people are familiar with, the one to the lower left looks similar to box elder bug. It's just that orange tint. You got to kind of break away from that too. So there's a little bit of a trick of identifying it correctly. So the egg masses, small masses, after they hatch in late spring, it goes through the nymph stages. During the first three, they appear black and then white spots. And then the last stage, which is typically occurs during midsummer, with many other insects that are going on at that time, they are red with white dots and black stripes. During the late summer and autumn, the adult moth stage will occur. These adults are large, approximately an inch in length, with black bodies and brightly colored wings, as you can see on the bottom right. If you Google this or YouTube it, literally the tree will be crawling with them if there's a large population. And it isn't the prettiest, but I mean, they're just all over each other, crawling on each other, and you know you've got kind of a problem at that point. What they are doing is they are kind of girdling. They are going out to the far parts of the limb and working their way back, and they're girdling and then taking in the sap from the tree to feed on. What then occurs is that with any living organism, they typically have waste. So when they're excreting their waste, that is what we call honeydew. That honeydew, and when you have thousands of them, it will literally feel like rain if you're underneath the tree. Yeah, it's a little gross. It's a lot gross. And so that then, the honeydew, and this is what I love about Mother Nature, the honeydew is sticking to the bark, sticking to cars, sticking to the sidewalk. Well, then there's a mold that then starts to grow on that material. We call it sooty mold. Some very good examples of it up on Briel Boulevard, some honey locusts that are across from the tennis courts. We've been fighting some insects. Allie and I have been trying to get a certain type of insect under control. The bark is it's as black as this. And so there's two things actually going on with this pest. It's damaging the tree, and then it's bringing in a mold that is not good for the plant. It also gets on the leaves of the unaffected parts of the tree, and then the chlorophyll and the sunshine photosynthesis isn't going on. So a lot of different things going on with this pest that make it a real problem for trees. In early May, when the nymphs emerge from the egg mass, so we ask residents to be observant. What I'm suggesting is that if you're in some of our parks or you're walking around your yard this spring, you take a hard look at your trunks of your trees, your telephone or telephone poles, your flag poles, your fence posts. If you're up against a railroad track like I am where my shop is, there were some cars actually stopped along the tracks. I came around, probably shouldn't have been doing that, but I actually walked about 7 or 8 cars last week, just moseying around, just seeing if I saw anything from there. So there'll be more information. There is a specific phone number that you can go to. I apologize, I do not have that on me. It's the one thing I missed on my notes. But if you think you see it, I am encouraging, you can call the city, you can get hold of Allie. I'll probably make my phone number available as well so that we can get hold of the state, because the sooner we can detect this, the better off we're going to be. When they get into this adult stage, and if you've identified it and you've notified the right agency and you've let us know, or you let the state know, we're certainly advocating killing them. If you got a flamethrower, if you have some pesticide, basically what they're trying to use is Dawn soap mixed in with water, and that's used as more of a suffocant, and it'll help basically just coat them, and then they will suffocate. So that's pretty much on that. I'll certainly stay up here and ask a question, but one last thing I wanted to address is I'm on a kind of a tangent right now with eradication of pear trees. I hope to come back down in the next couple months. I'm working with a couple groups right now. Your Bradford pears, I'm encouraging every citizen in Middletown to get rid of them. To get rid of them in your yard, to get rid of them in your mother's yard. They are absolutely taking over our wooded lots and our meadows, and it is becoming a huge problem, and it's going to lead to other issues as well. I thank you for your time. Any questions?
You said flamethrower, that was correct? Flamethrower.
Yes, flamethrower.
Chief Snively's
Wait a minute,
ready to
Okay.
help out with that.
Yeah, not a good idea.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
Point of clarification, the city will not be purchasing flamethrowers. Thank you.
And look forward to seeing you all Saturday.
Thank you very much for sharing your very specific, unique knowledge with Middletown. I guarantee you none of us up here could have given a presentation on the spotted lanternfly. I also want to point out, I did look at that QR code. That QR code goes to Ohio Plant Pest Reporter. So you don't actually need the phone number. You can report it right there with that QR code if you look on the YouTube video after. Well, thank you. Anyone else? Any questions? Okay. Next, we have citizen comments. Looks like we have one citizen comment this evening from Mr. Bob Nolan. If you want to come up to the dais, state your name and address for the record, and we've got 4 minutes we'd love to share with you.
Good evening, Council. Bob Nolan, 2515 El Camino Drive. There we go, 4 minutes. Nothing more nerve-wracking than having a timer shoved in your face. But I rise tonight in opposition to ordinance, I think it's number 27. I want you to know that I don't rise in opposition because I think somehow a coffee franchise coming to our city is somehow unworthy, that the owners are somehow unworthy, or that I think that our city needs to be deemed more or even more unfriendly to business as it is already in our community. But I think we need to look at this one objectively. The first thing I would say is that I believe that these grants are really designed not for franchise type businesses, but for the kind of businesses that are truly local, truly run by Middletonian. Do we ever come up with what that we were talking about at the barbershop the other day? Truly run by middies, I'll say it that way. This is city grant money, and I think we should be careful that we award it within the city, to its citizens. Nothing against the folks that want to do this, but they are from outside our community. And while we will benefit from the location being opened, I believe the spirit is that it was to be used to help those who truly need it And with a $400,000 build out, I'm not entirely sure that's the case. If I walked in here and said I want to build a McDonald's, you wouldn't even consider helping me because you understand I've got the sunk cost and it's a moneymaker and you don't need to prop that up. So lastly, and then I'll leave you to do your business and I'll go back upstairs and get in line because all my clients are procrastinators and I still got to go do some business. I read the staff recommendation on this one and I love it. It's either do it all, do some, or do none. But I think there's a fourth option that we should consider. And that is, this location is going to be a problem with traffic. It's already a problem. Anybody that lives over that direction where I do, if you want a pizza, you want a burrito with the people that are already there. Those suckers are cutting as soon as they get through that intersection trying to cut through traffic. There have been several wrecks I've witnessed over there myself. We're going to have to address that. During the morning rush hour, that's going to be hopping. There's going to be people all over the place. So I think we can help this business by helping ourselves at the same time. Take that money, the $15,000 we're going to give them, let's give it to the streets department or whatever it is that we call it, and let's use it for some stanchions or some delineator sticks, something that will prevent people, even if we just give it to them to put curvature in the middle of that road to prevent that left-hand turn, to move the traffic down to the light where Sonic is. It's going to be necessary the moment the place opens. So I think we should use that money in that way. The sum of my thoughts is this. I'd like to say welcome to our new neighbors and our new friends at Bigby Coffee. Let's use the funds in the wisest manner, not only to promote their growth, but traffic safety and proper traffic flow so that the stress with which their coffee will unwind isn't heightened simply by trying to procure it. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Next this evening, we have council comments. We'll start with Mr. Farrell.
I don't have any tonight. Thanks, though, Mayor.
Ms. Nenny.
Thank you. As your fellow park board member, I just want to thank all of the park board members who were in attendance, and also to Doris for all of your hard work on Keep Middletown Beautiful. They work really, really hard to bring recycling and beautification efforts to Middletown. She was telling us at our last park board meeting that they have presented to 432 students throughout the school district about recycling in only 2 weeks, and I'm sure it's maybe even more than that since our last meeting, and that they're looking forward to doing some summer programs with the youth in Middletown as well to teach them about recycling. So thank you for all of those efforts and all that you're doing to inform our youth about how to keep our city clean and beautiful. And to Steve and Matt, thank you for your presence here tonight and for such a wonderful presentation on the spotted lanternfly. I'm really hoping that I never get stuck underneath of one of those trees at just the right time. So thank you for sharing that information with us. And I encourage anyone who is available on Saturday to come down and help with the cleanup efforts to celebrate Arbor Day and Earth Day in Middletown. I know that they've put a lot of extra effort this year into sort of creating an event around that cleanup. Not only are they inviting us out to help clean up the city, but also to enjoy some festivities afterwards and to celebrate and to learn and to be with like-minded people who care about this city and the way that they do. So if you're able to come out on Saturday, that would be wonderful. And I think they still have sign-ups available, but you can just show up, right? And help out. So even if it's a last-minute thing and you just find that you have a few hours of time on Saturday morning, we would love to have you. Also, to address some of the references of park board members about wanting to spend more time with city council and to engage more with city council. We spoke at our last meeting about some of the things that we had discussed at our previous city council meeting, and everyone there had a lot of questions and a lot of interest in learning more about some of our parks, and specifically the few that we spoke about in new business. But if there would be some way for us to have a joint meeting or invite them down here to have sort of an open discussion, I know that that's something that they were interested in. So if we can talk more about that in new business, or or discuss maybe a day or a time when that would be convenient for us all to get together, that would be great. If not, everyone is welcome to attend our next park board meeting and learn a little bit more about what we do at park board. So that's all I have about parks. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Moon.
Yes. I was going to save this for new business, but I think I'll mention it now and let you guys think about it and let staff think about it. I've been reading the articles about the significant property tax increase that is probably going to be coming towards us, and that's certainly concerning for me, specifically for folks on fixed incomes and for seniors. So I wanted to ask council, and again, we can talk about it in new business, if they would have any interest in either, I don't know if it would be a resolution or a letter, but I think it would be most appropriately addressed to our state representatives and senators as opposed to the tax commissioner. It sounds like it's an issue with the ORC, not administrative. So just throwing that out there. I want to discuss it in new business and hear your guys' thoughts. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Muederspaw.
Yes, thank you. Just a few things. First of all, had an experience this past weekend where somebody in my family needed the Middletown Fire Department squad to be rushed to the hospital. And I just want to say, as somebody who lives here and loves it here, Chief Snively, your crew's awesome. They got out quick, they were fast, they were professional, they made this person feel safe, and that's what we pay our taxes for, and you guys hit a home run on that, so thank you. I want to thank the staff and your firemen, they're the best. Second, we had a couple issues this past week with a South Braille business and a South End business and a Central Avenue business, and they had questions about some processes. They'd called or had emailed me, and then they had sent me a social media message about some of these issues, and I immediately contacted the city manager's office. Within a day, they had people out there on top of stuff, getting it done. I think, Nathan, I called you on one of them or messaged you on one of them because Paul was out, but just what a great job that your staff did, simply put, because, you know, number one, there's processes, and the general public doesn't understand there are processes to take place. It's not that easy to do stuff when you have these, as I call them, red tape government bureaucracies you have to go through. But the staff did a great job, and for you guys to get your people out there quickly and solve it, that's awesome. It's just like what I said at the fire department, so thank you for that. Last, I wasn't able to make it, but the food truck rally that Jerry Lewis and everybody put on, I heard it was phenomenal, and I heard it had a good turnout, good bands, and those are the shiny objects and stuff that we need to keep people in Middletown, so great job to those who did that. I know it was more than Jerry involved, but great job to those people, so thank you. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I have a few things this evening. First of all, the 27th of April is the NAACP Scholarship Banquet, so if you're interested in attending, I'm not sure if they still have slots available, but I'm going to put the email address out regardless. You can RSVP to Middletown NAACP 3194@gmail.com. Also, want to just give a quick synopsis. The Great Miami Riverway Summit was last Friday, I believe. Lisha and I both had the opportunity to attend. It's great to network with all of our neighboring cities along the Riverway and talk about economic growth and development and all of the great things associated with our Riverway. One of the messages from the developers working on some of the most difficult site developments was that the key is that everyone has to work together on these very challenging sites. As you know, the puzzle pieces of council and staff inevitably change over time. We just need to make sure we continue to work together across departments and roles and neighborhoods and generations to accomplish these projects. So just thought I'd keep that in the back of our head and make sure we're looking at generational ability to maintain what we're working on. And also, in a time when developers really have to be sought out, we can't wait for them to come knocking on our door anymore, unfortunately. We were able to connect with one developer who's working on brownfield developments in Ohio now, so hopefully we'll get a meeting with him and talk about some of our sites. But it was, I think, a big win there, so hopefully we'll be able to move that forward in some fashion, in some point, in time, long term. Board of Health comments. We were discussing tobacco 21 licensing with the Board of Health, and they have the appetite, as far as the Board of Health, to establish a retail density. They were looking at maybe no more than one for every 2,000 citizens, so that would be limiting us to more like 26 licenses. Of course, these would be grandfathered in if you currently have a license or would have a license as we put this process in place in the future. But they were also looking at zoning restrictions, which they plan to broach at planning and zoning around schools and parks for the sale of tobacco. The Board of Health was proposing to use the same language that the city of Hamilton put into theirs as far as the zoning around the parks, but haven't put that in place for sure, of course, yet. So I just thought I'd let you guys know that that's something they're looking at. Hamilton's also looking into the ban of kratom. I think I might have mentioned that at the last meeting. That's been done by many states on a statewide level, and as I understand, it will not likely occur in Ohio because of what I understand are some political sensitivities there. So Butler County cities were looking at maybe we could do this on a local level, and Mayor Mueller in Hamilton's looking into that now. So more to follow on that. I just thought I'd mention it. But the Board of Health in Middletown is interested in following suit if that's something that we are able to do. So I'll raise it in new business just to see about your thoughts about the retail licensing density, because I would like to get council's thoughts on it, and also the zoning around parks and schools. And that is all I have this evening. Next is our city manager reports. Mr. Lawley.
Thank you, Mayor Condrey. Good evening, members of council. On the agenda tonight for the city manager's report, I would like to introduce Amy Abernathy with the Midpoint Library, and she is going to do a brief presentation on the library's annual report. And as I've stated in the past, I think the library is one of the gems of Middletown. I love to go to the library and browse the books.
Great. Welcome, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for having me this evening. My name is Amy Abernathy. I'm the branch manager at the Middletown location of the Midpoint Library System. I have with me this evening Tabitha Hill. She's our Middletown's Public Services Supervisor, and Travis Botts, which he's our Midpoint's Executive Director. I wanted to present to you the library's 2022 annual report and have a chance to relay the awesome programming and physical offerings that the library provides for the Middletown community. Next slide. First, some statistics from last year. We saw 83,906 patrons come into the Middletown Library, which for some context was up nearly 40% from 2021. Those same patrons checked out 277,000 items from our shelves. And because I have people ask me all the time, people still read real books. Yes, we do. And those people that came into the library checked out 165,000 physical books. So yes, people are still reading. What has changed, though, in the library now is that we diversify our collection. So not only do we have books and DVDs, but we now have available science kits like telescopes and coding items like Makey kits and hotspots and even connectivity kits that contain Chromebooks. All available for checkout with a library card. Patrons are also coming to the library for programming. We have all types of family-friendly programs available. We offered 647 of those last year, so that's an average of 54 programs a month. And over 10,000 people attended those just in Middletown. Next slide, thank you. And you might be wondering, what was the most popular program in Middletown? So in 2022, we saw Middletown Library's summer reading program attendance absolutely soar. We found that our patrons were ready to come back to our building post-COVID and take part in our community events. We also partnered with the Middletown City Schools, offering a community stop for their personalized learning days. We featured a story time, craft, and scavenger hunt for students to participate in. And the Middletown Library also worked with the Children's Hunger Alliance, who's our sponsor, to offer lunches to children all summer. The Middletown Library also worked, the programs pictured here on the slides are an adult program that was the Middletown Local History. We also have our artisans class, where people come and paint and do other artsy things. And then the little girl there is here for Miss Mary's April Fool's Day of silliness. So, next slide. In closing, I do want to highlight that I am incredibly proud of my amazing team at the Middletown Library, and we are all honored to be a positive component of the Middletown community. Once again, I thank you so much for having me this evening. You'll see the library again in June for our 2024 budget cycle. And among all of our varied offerings that we have, we look forward to seeing you at an upcoming library event. Thank you.
Can you also speak, turn that up. Can you also speak to the, I know there's a subscription you guys now have for media, like movies and like a version of Netflix, like.
It's called Canopy.
Canopy, that's right.
Yeah, so there's tons of digital offerings as well. So you can take your library card and go online and get audiobooks, regular books, movies at Canopy. So we have several different platforms to choose from.
Great.
It's a fantastic offering.
I like to just talk about that because for those families who don't want to necessarily get subscriptions to Audible or Netflix or Hulu or whatever, or may not have the budget, but they can get a library card for free, right? Mm-hmm. And then subscribe that way.
Download for free, and you don't have to worry about bringing it back.
That's right. Don't bring it back. I like it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. I was worried you were going to get me for that overdue library book from 1968. That's all I have this evening.
Okay,
Mayor
thank
Condon.
you. That brings us to the consent agenda. Ms. Kank, will you please present that for us?
For your consideration this evening, we have to receive and file the Board of Health minutes from February 14th and March 14th of 2023, and the Board of Zoning Appeals from March the 1st, 2023. To confirm the personnel appointments of Jacob Mullins to the position of Corrections Officer in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police, Sage McMonaco and Dylan Cole to the positions of Maintenance Worker in the Department of Public Works and Utilities, Street Maintenance Division, and to confirm the promotional appointment of Cody Robertson to the position of Equipment Operator in the Department of Public Works and Utilities, Division of Division of Water Maintenance, and to receive and file an oath of office for Emmeline Meyer.
I would like to move that the matters listed under the consent agenda be considered routine and enacted by one motion and one vote of consent.
Second.
Ms. Kank, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
On the motion agenda, we have to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Polecat Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $3,344,055 to remove approximately 50,000 dry tons of lime from the lime lagoon at the water treatment plant.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Lawley, did you want to speak to this at all? I know it's a kind of a big deal item.
There is a legislative item that I was
Okay,
prepared to
it
give a
follows with
background on
Okay,
later.
we can talk about it in
I
legislation.
can do it then, or
Yeah, that's fine. Are there any comments or questions from council before we vote on the motion agenda item? Okay, Ms. Kank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Next is to authorize the donation of a 2003 American LaFrance fire engine to the Voluntary Firefighters Corps and Rescuers of Cabo San Lucas.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
now this is a pretty cool program. If you recall, a couple years ago, we sent a fire engine down to Tom. What was the name of one of the Grenadine Islands, and they're still using it today as a frontline pumper. And it was actually in one of their major hurricane incidents. Pictures from it in use. I mean, if we sold this on Gov Deals, we'd probably get maybe $3,000 for this truck, and it's going down there. And you know, I know people see that it's going to Cabo St. Lucas. Oh my God! But out in the poorer sections of the island, they need supplies and equipment like this. So they'll use it for several years.
It would be great to get some photos.
Yeah, we'll get them back.
In use.
I've offered to drive it down there.
Yeah. I'm sure the Journal would love to put a positive press story out about it with some good photos. Yeah, I'm sure.
We'll get pictures.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Gang, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Muerspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
To authorize the city manager to execute a pre-development agreement with Wayland Ventures LLC related to the redevelopment of certain properties owned by the city in the downtown district.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Any comments or questions on this one? I thank staff for all their hard work working with Wayland, and this is pretty exciting to look at the future of our downtown, maybe having some potential of revitalization and bringing new life to old buildings and places. Okay, Ms. Gang, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muerspaw?
Yes.
Okay, that brings us to legislation. Brody, would you like to present that?
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. To start, I would ask for a motion to suspend the charter provision that requires reading on 2 separate days for, and to declare resolution number R 2023-08, resolution number R 2023-09, ordinance number O 2023-28, ordinance number O 2023-29, as emergencies measures and require just one reading.
I would move that the aforementioned resolutions and ordinances be considered an emergency measure and read one time only.
They're all second reading emergencies.
I think that's right.
Second.
Okay. So we're waiving the 30 days to enactment,
Sure.
not the second,
I think
not
that
the
was
two
I think
readings.
that was previously stated, yes.
Declaring an emergency measure, so.
Okay.
Great, so first we'll start.
Ms. Gink, will you please call the roll?
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muerspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Great, we'll first do resolution number R 2023-08, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, state of Ohio, for the period ending December 31, 2023, and declaring an emergency. This is the Community Development Act 1974 fund.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Any further
I have
comments?
nothing further to add.
Okay. Any comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muerspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item number 2 tonight is resolution number R 2023-09, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, state of Ohio, for the period ending December 31, 2023, and declaring an emergency. This is the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 fund.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
I have nothing further to add.
Any comments or questions from council? Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muerspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item 3 is ordinance number O 2023-27, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a small business grant agreement with S&M Global Investments LLC. This is a second reading.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Anything further?
Council, at the last meeting, you had a few questions on this item, and I'm going to introduce Lisha Moreland, our Assistant Director of Economic Development, to come up and answer some of those questions for you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. I'm here to try and answer the questions that you had. I can either start with the ones that I had written from last time, or you could throw them out at me tonight. Let me start with the ones I have.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
So one of the questions that came up was whether or not we as staff felt like this business would go ahead and get started if we did not provide the small business grant. And the answer to that is yes, we do feel like it would still go ahead and open. The question about how many jobs were expected and the salary range, we don't know the salary range, but we know that there are about 20 jobs that they are expected to fill. That's a combination of full-time equivalent and part-time. And their estimated annual payroll would be $220,000. So our approximate tax income from that would be $4,400. Would it be tied to a lien on equipment? We typically will do liens on, for instance, the forgivable loan. With grants, we don't do liens. So we certainly will have an inventory of what that equipment is, but we will not do a lien on that with grant monies. Let's see, what else do we have here? Other grant applications that were received by the city for this particular grant program, there were two. This was the one that was approved by our review committee and then was brought to council. The other one was still in question, and there were still some outstanding things that needed to be answered on that, so that one was pulled. I think there were some grants, applications that came through whatever the grant program was prior to me getting here, and then we have about 5 applications, well, they're not applications yet, 5 businesses that are lined up to submit applications for our new ARPA Infusion Grant program when that gets rolled out. I think that's it, unless you guys had some other questions.
This falls under which program specifically?
This is the Small Business Grant Program.
Okay, and what's the total amount we even have for that program? Are there deadlines or?
What we are going to, once the ARPA Infusion Grant rolls out, our intention then is to go ahead and shut this one down and then use our ARPA dollars for the ARPA Infusion Grant. If all those monies get used, then we will, if there's still monies in this program, we will go ahead and open that back up.
Okay, how much do we have left in this program?
I do not know that offhand.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot with that one.
No, that's okay. I should have had that. I don't know how much we have in that so far, but with this one, the only one going through, I would say whatever monies were in there, the significant portion of that is still there.
Okay, and so there's no deadline. Is this a rolling, I know I asked this last time and I can't remember. Is this a rolling application, and when we find the right candidates, we give them out, or are there deadlines associated with it?
No, with this, and as well with the intention of our ARPA Infusion Grant, we will leave it open until the monies are used. So the way the process currently works and will continue to work, we have a review committee made up of different representatives of the different departments. They review it, score it, make the recommendation for council whether or not the review committee scored it as an approval or not, and then it comes to you.
I thought Mr. Nolan had a lot of good points earlier. I think actually a lot of them that I was thinking already. What do you think that there could be a need for infrastructure or things to address the traffic flow around that site?
I think those are two separate issues. And I think it's a good point in that, yeah, we certainly need to, as our city continues to grow and we have traffic flow changes, I definitely think we should start talking about how do we change or modify some of the infrastructure to allow for a smoother traffic flow. I will say that with franchises, in my experience in working with franchise organizations from the franchisor network, is that they look at traffic studies, they look at real estate studies, they look at the demographics around the proposed locations of where a franchisee would like to go, and they help the franchisee or guide them, use tools to guide them on what would be the best location. So they've obviously, Big B Coffee being a national franchise, has looked at that and has considered that. The other thing that I will say, according to some of the points that he made, is, cities need both the franchised and the homegrowns. I will tell you that lending institutions typically like to lend to franchise organizations more so than your homegrown type of business because of the proven process that franchises have, and as well their national brand recognition. Big B is national with 300 locations at this point. This franchisee in particular, this is his second location that he will be opening, so this is not his first opening. And with a significant amount of his own investment into this will be the best so far return on investment of a small business grant that we have given.
And on that same vein, this is his second one opening, but that still makes him a very small business owner.
It is a small business.
Which I know it's hard to look at it that way when we're talking about a major chain, but really, or franchise, I should say. But I just want to clarify that point because it could look like we're essentially giving a small business grant to a large company, which is not the case.
Right.
But in terms of small business grant applications, there are still plenty of dollars out there that the city could be investing into other small businesses. And so I think whenever we have a conversation about this grant money and the opportunities that present themselves there, we'd be remiss not to invite people to contact our economic development department and see if their business might qualify for the kind of assistance that we might be able to offer.
Absolutely. The other thing that we are trying to do more and more of is to utilize some of our other partners like Downtown Middletown, Middletown Small Business Alliance, and our Small Business Development Center to utilize those partners and get the reach extended for awareness of the small business grants.
Yeah, it sounds like after the last meeting we had a little chat and we just really aren't getting a lot of applications, which is...
Right. And I think a lot of folks just simply don't know, or they don't know where to come. So we need to change that and promote that a lot more.
And sometimes businesses or people who are thinking about starting a business don't really know where to start.
They don't.
And that's okay too, because they can still come to you and say, hey, listen, I have this crazy idea. What do you think?
Yeah.
And there's going to be somebody there to listen and encourage them and try to help them through the process.
Yes. And even the one thing that I like with our review committee is that one of the requirements is that the business applicant will meet with the Small Business Development Center. That is a requirement that they meet with them. Their services are free, and a lot of folks don't even know about the Small Business Development Center. So they can meet with them for the requirement of the business grant application and talk through their business plan, but they can continue to get that free business advising even after they open. So that makes for a stronger business in our community.
Mm-hmm.
Alicia, just one question and one comment. We have the staff report, but not everybody at home or in the audience has a staff report. From your perspective, why is staff recommending this? And then my comment would just be, and maybe I'm going to look up at Scott here, if we're talking about traffic maybe coming out onto 122, and there might be a whole lot of logistical issues coming out onto a state route, but having those two means of egress, and I see Mr. Lawler.
Yeah, what I'm going to say to that is I understand that and I get that, but if you remember, there were two other organizations in that strip mall. One of them was relatively large that had constantly had 12 to 15 people in it, and that was the cable company. And what happened then is a lot of people realized they needed to go down to the light. And I think we will see a lot of people go down to the light where they'll be able to get out easy. You start seeing 2, 3, 4 cars backed up there, people naturally are, hey, how do I get out easier? But we will keep an eye on it, and we'll get with Scott and Public Works, and if we have to make some adjustments, we will.
My office is right there. I think I said at the last meeting, and I'm at that light 5 times a day, and I never have trouble getting out of there. I go to rapid fire, and it takes me a second to get out. So I understand what Bob's saying, because he does bring up some very valid points. He really does. But not going to vote no on a small business because of traffic. If it was residential, yeah. Commercial, no. Traffic's part of being in a commercial area. Yeah. Any city you go to. So I feel pretty strong about it.
I feel like this one has the potential to, one, support a small business, that this small business itself has the potential to help other small businesses because it will draw and increase the legitimacy of Middletown in general, right? So it kind of has a twofold.
How did I answer
Well, just was wanting your perspective for the public on your recommendation.
The recommendation, so sort of going back to the fact that this is not a first-time franchisee business owner. Not that I would recommend no if it were, but he's not. He's got another location already open and operating as well. He did voice at the meeting when he submitted his application that he is looking to be involved in the philanthropic efforts at the city. So he's really wanting to get involved in the community. That was nice to hear. And then as well, because he is looking at such a large staff, whether it's a 20 of full-time or 20 of a combination full-time, part-time, that just has the potential to grow. So, I think those are sort of the main highlights. There's some other nuances according to who you would ask on the review committee, but that was sort of the general consensus overall. Okay. Anything else?
Did I see that the owner might be in the audience? Oh. Nice to meet you. Thank you. Did council have any other comments or questions on this one? right, thank you. Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Meterspaugh?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Well, welcome to Middletown. We look forward to having coffee.
Great. The next item this evening is ordinance number O-2023-28, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and enter into a water supply revolving loan account agreement with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency's Department of Environmental and Financial Assistance for the removal of 50,000 dry tons of lime residuals and declaring an emergency.
So moved for adoption.
Okay, council, this is part of the motion agenda. This is the legislation item to apply and accept the loan application, to apply and accept and enter into the water supply revolving loan for the Lime Pond Rehabilitation Project. What this does is allow us to remove 50,000 dry tons of lime residual that's there in the lagoon, part of Smith Park and the airport area down there. It's time we get that cleaned up. If you recall, the original plan was to build a lime facility. However, just due to the astronomical cost increase of doing that, it was not financially feasible. Essentially, really not to make light of it or a joke of it, but you think the fire stations increased in cost. This was, I think Scott, Public Nikita can tell you that this was really going to be a significant increase, and so this is the next best answer to do this, and then of course eventually the basin. This allows us to receive a loan for $3,344,055. There is it includes a 10% contingency to a total of up to $3,678,461. If you have any further questions, Nikita or Scott may be able to, or will be able to answer.
Just a comment and then a question. I'll state my question because you'll probably come wandering down and I'll make my comment. Do we have any idea how much this is actually going to pull the lime back and over how long of a period of time? And just so folks understand, and Nicole, you can probably speak to this way better than I can, you know, it's a real issue with the FAA as that lime pond grows and it encroaches on, you know, the taxiway and the runway, right, and it restricts the ability of planes to take off and land because it's entering the safety area, and it can cost us the length of the runway if that lime pond continues to grow. So it's a bigger issue than I think most folks in the public probably realize. If you have any other thoughts.
I will add, from a recreational perspective, it inhibits people from even getting out to the Great Miami Riverway
Right,
Trail.
in the bike path.
Yeah, on the bike path.
But do we have any ideas on, I mean, what 50,000 dry tons actually means in real life? Because I don't have a perspective on that. I'm not going to hold you to it. I know the folks at the airport are going to ask me, so if we can get any sort of guidance on it.
Yeah, I think the intent with the 50,000 is to get it back to its original footprint and then also give us a little bit of storage capacity. That way we're not kind of like always skirting up against the line of it overflowing again. So I think that we think that, you know, 30,000 dry tons will get us pretty close to the original footprint of the Lime Lagoon, and then have like the 20,000 dry ton storage capacity there. Our intent moving forward will be to more proactively dredge lime from the lagoon and keep up with it and maintain it. But, you know, if situations prevent us from doing that in any given year, we will hopefully not be in the position that we are now, where it's kind of encroaching on the airport and the park. So.
Thanks, Nikita.
Best guess, anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any health ramifications if, let's say, kid, dog, whatever, go through that lime because it's overflowing Smith Park as well?
We do get that question a lot from residents. They think that it's more of an environmental hazard. The spent lime that's coming into the lagoon is part of our water softening process. So it's used in the water treatment process, so it is safe for human consumption. I mean, I think maybe at the concentrations that it's in the lagoon, I wouldn't recommend drinking it or ingesting it intentionally, but shouldn't cause any specific health concerns.
Okay, and are we planning to, at this point now, leave the Light Up Middletown building in place?
Yes.
Okay.
all that's been abandoned. So the Barney's Barn can continue as is.
Okay.
I think they were relieved.
And Nikita, remind me, during the pandemic, was there, I feel like there was an issue where maybe we couldn't get it removed that there was some problem with removing it, that there wasn't a company to do it, or that they were full and they weren't taking any more?
Previously, we had an agreement with Dayton Water, and the agreement with them was that they would dredge the lime from the lagoon, take it to their reprocessing facility in Dayton, and then the agreement was that we would purchase all of our lime from them. We had some issues with the quality of lime that we were getting from them, such that we were actually refusing some of the lime, and that was putting us into an emergency situation because we were banking on their lime to be able to use in our softening process. And they weren't really holding up their end of the bargain as far as the dredging went, because they take lime from a lot of other utilities as well, so they only want to take as much as they can get away with taking from Middletown. So I think, their agreement was to take 5,000 dry tons per year, which still wasn't keeping up, but they weren't even holding up that. So we got into a bad situation with
I remember that being sort of during the pandemic time and contributing to the compounding problem.
Yes,
we
the
had
overflowing
here.
issue that we're in now. Yeah. Other questions?
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions or comments from council, I'll have Ms. Gank call the roll.
So I got Ms. Nette's first. I didn't get the second. I'm sorry.
Mute.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell, Ms. Nenne,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw.
Yes.
Item number 5 is ordinance number O-2023-29, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Benchmark Land Management LLC for repair of the Avalon Pump Station force main and declaring an emergency.
So moved for adoption?
Second.
Mr. Lawley, did you want to add anything?
I don't have anything to add other than this is an emergency. We found a problem with the pump there at the Avalon, the old Avalon trailer area, and the pump station the piping has to be, actually the work's already been done. And so this authorizes us to contract and pay for it.
Any comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Ms. Nenne,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Next item is ordinance number O-2023-30, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing an amendment to a contract with Branstetter Carroll Incorporated for engineering and design services for expansion of the Robert Sunny Hill Jr. Community Center and declaring an emergency. There is no action requested until May 2, 2023.
Mr. Lawley.
I'm going to defer to Assistant City Manager Cahill on this. He's worked with Branstetter on this project.
Thank you. Mayor, members of council, before you is legislation that would authorize an increase in the contractual spending limit with the contract that the city holds with Branstetter Carroll Incorporated for the architectural and engineering design of the community center's expansion and renovation project. As council will recall, last fall, in conjunction with a cooperative agreement with the city school district, the city entered into a contract with Branstetter Carroll to provide those services for the project, with the schools and the city sharing in the costs of that contract pursuant to our cooperative agreement. Through the course of visioning and conceptual planning of the project, the ad hoc committee established by council and the school district has identified a desire to increase the scope of the project and endeavor towards having it include the construction of a new full-size indoor gymnasium component of the project. Obviously, the scope of the project would change, and the contract that we have with Branstetter is on a percentage basis based on the estimated cost of construction. So with the added cost of the gymnasium, their price would go up. Council previously authorized a spending limit of $600,000. Brainstetter's current contract is right around $550,000 right now. The change order in front of you is $194,000 and change. So we're about 140 or so light in terms of our spending cap if you're desirous of moving forward. To give council full background, I know a couple council members participate on the committee. The cost of the gymnasium right now would exceed the pledged dollar amounts from the city, the school district, and from Butler County. That committee is in the process of soliciting third-party funding for that funding gap. The mechanics of approving this change order and allowing for that extra design work to occur would allow for the project to still stay on its current glide path in terms of timing for getting final construction drawings done and out to bid so that we can get underway before the end of the year. The gymnasium, if you are to approve this tonight, the gymnasium component would be bid out as a bid alternate. So when the project would be bid, in a nutshell, there would actually be two prices we would be asking for general contractors, one without the gym and one with the gym. Obviously, they can't bid on the package that would include the gym unless there's some plans in detail so they know what they would be bidding on. The hope is that the committees, the school districts, third-party fundraising can meet that gap obligation before we get underway. If not, then the option would be to proceed without the gymnasium as part of the scope, knowing though that at least you have it designed. It's one way to look at it. But other than that, I'm more than happy to answer any other questions that council may have.
I know the supplemental $500,000 that we approved from ARPA to go towards the gym specifically was contingent upon the additional, well, I'm not sure if it was legislatively contingent, but it was understood that it was contingent upon the rest of the funds being raised and the gym actually being built. I just want to make sure everyone's aware that this dollar amount will not be contingent, right? We have to spend it regardless. So this is a non-refundable.
That is correct, Mayor. It would be.
And
yeah, it'd be a sunk cost.
Any comments or questions from council? Okay, we're not voting on this one tonight, so we can move on.
Great. Item number 7 tonight is ordinance number O-2023-31, an ordinance authorizing a contract with Jones Warner Consultants Incorporated to design an extension of the sanitary sewer near North Union Road and declaring an emergency. And again, no action is requested until May 2, 2023.
Mr. Lawley?
Council, if you recall at the work session in early February, I guess it was, you authorized spending up to $1 million in economic development to extend sewer on North Union Road. Tonight, this is asking to permit the city manager to enter into a contract with Jones Warner Consultants for the design of such sanitary sewer extension on the North Union Road land at a cost of $127,542.
Any questions from council on this one? Great. Happy to see some of that moving along.
Next tonight is ordinance number O-2023-32, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Yoakum Fireworks LLC and declaring an emergency. No action is requested until May 2, 2023.
Mr. Lawley.
This pretty much speaks for itself. You do notice that we were able to use $20,000 from 2022 and then $22,000 for the total of $43,000 for the fireworks on July 3rd.
Great. Any comments or questions?
Who'd you get for the band, or is that a secret? Secret, isn't it? Don't say it if you're going to get anybody in trouble. I don't want anybody in trouble. Zach doesn't know.
I don't. You know what? I don't know. I've heard him talking about it. Chief Burke may know. He's on the committee. He just walked out.
All right, I just was curious.
But it's not.
If you get Joan Jett to come, I'll show up. How's that?
We're gonna work on her.
Is that a person or a band, by the way? I don't know.
Yes, no.
Moving on. Next, we'll have item 9, which is resolution number R 2023-11, a resolution authorizing a transfer subject to reimbursement from the general fund to the airport improvement fund and declaring an emergency. No action is requested until May 2, 2023.
Council, this is, find my notes here. This is for, this is for the contract for Sunesis Construction for the airport ramp expansion. And somewhere here I got my notes because there was something I wanted to bring up on it, but my notes are missing. Well, essentially, it's for the expansion of the airport ramp, and it will also include an add-on for the de-icing capabilities, which will increase our ability to land planes in the winter months. This is a total of $338,500. 90% of that is paid by the FAA grant, 5% from ODOT, and 5% from the city of Middletown.
Any comments or questions?
Next is ordinance number O 2023-33, an ordinance authorizing a contract with Sunesis Construction for the airport ramp expansion project and declaring an emergency. No action requested until May 2, 2023.
So the first was the transfer.
Okay, that's
funds.
what it was.
Now
I
we're on
just
the
found my
contract.
notes at number 11.
Same
So
topic.
both these items were together. Basically, I covered everything. I will say that Sunesis was we chose them because they were the lowest bid. They demonstrated experience and capabilities in general aviation, and they offered the shortest timeline for completion of the project. And this area is the area between Safe Skies and
Between the FBO and
FBO and
the
Safe
hangar.
Skies. Is that right, Scott? Yeah.
The FBO and the Jets hangar.
Yeah.
Yep, the Jets hangar. That's what I was trying to think of.
And just to
Thank you.
clarify, the transfer of funds, that's basically the city fronting the cost and then being reimbursed by ODOT and the FAA.
That is correct. Yes, thank you.
Great. Next is item number 11, which is ordinance number O 2023-34, an ordinance amending sections 660.045, accumulation of rubbish, garbage, or litter, 660.21, yard maintenance, 1436.06, remedial action, 1458.10, affecting compliance in various sections of Chapter 678, weeds, and 1030, trees, shrubs, and plants of the codified ordinances. This is a first reading.
Council, this is to make the nuisance abatement process more uniform, and I'm going to let you talk about this since you were the architect of it.
The really fun stuff. So this really is just to kind of standardize a lot of the notice provisions to property owners of if there's issues with trash and garbage or overgrown grass or trees and things like that, to kind of make it a little bit more legally sound. So and then it also changes some of the wording to update the departments of the city, the development services, public works, things like that, which in these chapters had not been updated. So it's really nothing too much there. It brings us in line with sort of the revised code, so we can then assess this or certify it to the county auditor, so that the county auditor can just put it on the tax bill for the property. So allows us to collect it in an easy way.
I saw it was referencing some ORCs that now put some extra work, I believe, on Ms. Gank's plate. I just wanted to make sure we're communicating.
It was always on my plate.
Okay, we did it that way regardless of what our ordinances said.
I think it actually last time, some were the clerk, some were the finance department. So again, we've kind of, it does.
Okay,
put a
so
little
you're
bit more
aware, you know what.
Yeah, so they prepare it and then I sign off on it.
and transmit it basically.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
It
so-
shouldn't affect, I think, the day-to-day too much, I
Right.
hope. But that was certainly a consideration that we talked about.
Okay, great. Any comments or questions from council? No.
Great. Next is item 12, which is ordinance number O-2023-35, an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of notes in the maximum principal amount of $8 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying the costs of the acquisition by the city of approximately 30 acres of real property along Union Road and State Route 122 for a multi-use development, demolition of existing structures, and the design, engineering, and construction of related and necessary public infrastructure, including but not limited to water, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer utilities, roads, traffic signals and controls, curbs, gutters, intersections, sidewalks, lighting, and related infrastructure, together with all necessary appurtenances thereto, all in support of economic development and job creation within the city. And this is a first reading.
Mr. Lawley.
I don't have, that was perfect right there. That's pretty much everything I was going to say. He stole it from my notes.
Oh, so that's where they went.
Okay. Any comments or questions from council?
Do we know when the closing is estimated to be?
I believe it's the third week of July is what we're targeting right now.
And the principal cost will be covered by pending TIF?
Yes.
Yeah, so the mechanics of this, so this is kind of our next step in that process. So we're starting the legislative process tonight for the issuance of these bond anticipation notes that will provide us proceeds to close on the property. Once this takes effect, we'll also see a subsequent appropriation measure, a supplemental appropriation, appropriating those funds once the notes are sold. What's in front of you is not only a debt issuance limit to cover the acquisition of the property, but also to allow the city to proceed with the engineering design of the public improvements for the project. This is an up to limit. Keep in mind too that we would not execute any agreement, no agreement for that engineering services would come to this body until obviously we have all the parties involved with a final development agreement. But that should all be a bang bang play, so to speak, at home plate right around the middle of summer.
Just so folks understand, it's not like we're writing a check from the general fund tomorrow and we're
Yes,
going to
sir.
see our general fund balance drop by $8 million. It's going to be paid for by the tax increase
That is
on the
correct.
property, which will pay for the debt.
Yeah,
on the
so
bond.
our targeted timeline would be is that close towards the end of the year, maybe as late as early January, the city would be issuing permanent bonds that are backed by TIF revenue that would extinguish these notes and carry that infrastructure cost going forward.
Thank you.
Our final legislative item tonight is ordinance number O-2023-36, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Neighborhood Housing Services of Hamilton Incorporated for implementation of a first-time homebuyer assistance program. This is a first reading.
Council, this, as he stated, this is for the first time home buyer programs for owner-occupied housing. Minimum a person gets is $1,000, maximum is $5,000. It depends on the cost. There is an error in the staff report. At the very bottom, NHS Program Administration, administrative cost total $30,000. That is incorrect. It's $15,000. It's 15%. We used to give them $200,000. We backed that off to $100,000, readjusted some of the funds and some of the other programs, and we made that mistake by putting that $30,000 based on $200,000. It's $15,000 is what their cost to administer the program for us is.
The contract date also needs changing. I think it says March 31st.
Yeah, that is a mistake in the, no, wait a minute. Where's that at?
It's handwritten in, I think at the top of the contract.
Okay, I'll check with that, Ashley, tomorrow. Oh, it should say 30th, I see.
It says March,
Oh,
I think, unless I misread it. But... Anyway, just
let me check
yeah,
with,
just make sure
with
the
Ashley.
date is right. That's all. Yeah. Any comments or questions on this one? Okay, that brings us to new business items. I know we had a few council members mention they wanted to raise some topics. Mr. Moon, did you have some?
Sure, I kind of laid it out. Don't know if anybody has any initial thoughts. We don't have to make a decision tonight if we don't want to, or if staff has any initial thoughts. Just maybe we can advocate for our citizens a little bit.
I was actually thinking about mentioning something to that effect as well, so I would be supportive if we wanted to make a formal either resolution or statement of dissatisfaction with the raising property tax.
I did talk to the auditor's office, and they'd be happy to work with us on specific language. Whether that be a letter or resolution, I'll let the professionals decide, but could be something that maybe you could draft. If it's a letter, you could draft it and we could review it next week or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think that'll be an issue at all.
So I guess my thoughts are, obviously property values have gone up. Anybody who pays attention to the real estate market knows that, but from what I think, the way you sort of counterbalance that is you talk to your state legislators. I think, don't hold me to this, but I think houses are valued at, it's either 90 or 93%. So the way to sort of even it out or try to put less of a bearing on the taxpayers of the owners of the homes is you bump that down to an 85 or an 80 or a 75%. That's really the way you go about that. It's not saying that they'll do it, but that's the way for us to try to alleviate that, is the percentage that the house's tax stat goes down.
I did see, I mean, I'm sure you all read the article, Claremont County is going to be 30-40%, I think I read. And
it was like 40, or yeah. Montgomery's 43, one of them's.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to promote home ownership, not, yeah.
No, not good. Yeah.
So I guess barring any other comments, we're supportive.
We'll work on something and get it to you next week.
Thank you. Any other new business items? I know I wanted to talk about just council's appetite on tobacco 21, and if you guys felt like a retail density was something we thought would be a good idea. That would mean essentially across the city we would try to limit over time as tobacco retail licenses are lost or sold or whatever, get down to a certain number that would be commensurate with something like 1 in 2,000, which is what has been done elsewhere across the country. Another option is 1 in 4,000, which I think is a little too restrictive, as did the Board of Health, but that is another number that's been thrown out. Hamilton did not do retail density in theirs, but when mentioned to them, they said they would have definitely considered it had they thought about it. So,
how many licenses do we have now? Do you have any
idea? We don't have any licenses, which is why we're, but yeah, we think we're somewhere around 77.
That was the number I got today.
Okay, 77. We think we have 77 retailers in the city.
And you're saying go down to 26?
Yeah, well, it's 1 in 2,000. So if our population is approximately 50 to 52, we would be looking at 25, 26. Obviously, it is going to take a very, very long time before we would ever get to that. So it would essentially put a halt on any new tobacco retail licenses coming out after we issue them.
So what happened? So what would all these people do? They just randomly, I don't even know how we go about that.
Like, how many new licenses have we gotten? Like, say, how many have we issued in the last year?
No, we don't have, okay, here, let me back up. Okay. We are putting into place a tobacco retail licensing program. The Board of Health has approved all of that part of it. Hamilton has it in place. The city of Cincinnati has done it already. It's in order to curb underage tobacco sales is the goal of it.
Yeah, which obviously we're all supportive of that, I think.
Sure, yeah.
What do? You sort of do a lottery like they do with the marijuana dispensary?
No, so right now what happens is we're canvassing the city. By we, I mean the Department of Health. They have found, they believe to be 77 current retailers of tobacco in the city of Middletown. And so what they're doing is educating, we're on the year of education. So we're educating all of these retailers that this program is going to be coming into place. You have to apply to the program as long as you pay your licensing fee. The other part of it, we need to know who's selling tobacco so that our police department can actually enforce the law about not selling to under 21. Otherwise, we don't know even who's selling tobacco in the city. So like we have a liquor sales license, it's essentially a tobacco sales license, so that the police know where they have to actually enforce the law. Without it, underage sales of tobacco, quite honestly, are rampant, and so we just can't control it. It's too difficult. It also gives money into the program to help with the actual implementation of Tobacco 21. It's something like, I think they've proposed 200. I can't remember the cost per license, but it's a standard cost per license no matter how much you're selling. And so this year, the Department of Health is educating retailers about it, and then there's a point at which we'll actually put it into place. So they'll have to put their application in. We will not restrict the number at that point, right? Because they're already doing business in Middletown. We can't say, well, you can't do your business here anymore. So we will end up with something like 77 retail licenses in the city of Middletown. Now, after that, if we put a retail density into place, it will mean that as these companies go out of business, we can't have new retailers that come into the city. So it will slowly over time back us down to a level that is essentially healthier than the current one.
I'd love some more information. I'm not anywhere close to as educated on it as you are, and I'd be interested in furthering the conversation, but I'd like to know more and hear more from Cincinnati and Hamilton, and maybe is there more folks around the state that are doing this as well, and just kind of understanding where we are and compared to our peers.
I guess similarly, I'd be interested to know what the small business owners or the business owners who are currently selling these products, what their reaction is and what their feelings are about it as well.
And I also should state, I am not sure what council's role is in this decision-making process, so I can clarify that for you as well, because I don't know if it may simply be a Board of Health makes the decisions. I don't know that. But it may come through council, so I need to look at that as well. But I did want to circulate it with you guys regardless, because it is kind of a
I'd like to learn more. Is that something that Jackie or the Board of Health can send to us?
Yeah,
or maybe present a proposal to us about it, or
I wonder if it wouldn't be helpful for her to do a presentation on Tobacco 21. Did she do one at council?
No, not yet. We talked about it today. I'll see when she would be available.
Yeah, that might be good, and she can give an update.
Prepared to do it.
Yeah, if she's willing, that would be helpful. And the other question in place is the zoning. So if we want to restrict zoning around schools and parks, that is something Hamilton has in place. It went through their planning commission in order to make that happen. And so the plan out of the Board of Health meeting was to raise it, just get the temperature from planning commission before it ever officially comes before them at their next meeting. But I just thought I would mention that as well. So the Board of Health was interested in overlaying both of these, so having both a retail density and a zoning restriction. I think that's the same thing would apply for the zoning restriction, that if there is an existing retailer within that zoning buffer around schools and parks, I don't think we can shut them down. But moving forward, no new ones would be able to go in place within that buffer. And I don't remember what the distance is that Hamilton had. I asked Jackie if she could pull that, because I don't know what it is.
If Jackie would be able to maybe make a presentation to Planning Commission as well, I don't know if that would proceed.
That's what I just said. Her plan was to do that.
I can bring it up in new business at the next Planning Commission meeting, but I don't feel like I have the information to do that.
That's what I was saying, that the Board of Health requested for the Health Department to just gauge the temperature at a Planning Commission meeting about it, so that they would essentially present it to them and say, here, this is something we're considering, just so you know, and you can think about it before it actually comes
I was just saying, if she could speak with James and get that on the agenda, that would be.
Yeah.
I'm probably in the minority here, but that sounds like big government to me. Reducing 77 to 26 and saying nobody else can come in. That defeats our whole purpose of what we're trying to do. And I know that it's cigarettes and it's alcohol, but that's a business. Maybe I missed it, but if the police department having an overwhelming problem with juveniles getting cigarettes, I know we do the stings, and I know we check the.
It's vaping.
I know we send the, but that's not going. Us limiting that, it's like guns. It's not going to stop problems. Is that a huge problem for you, or is the homicides and the violence a big problem?
I mean, the violence is the biggest problem we have, but the high school and, the private schools deal with the vape pens. But again, they get those vape pens, adults buy them, they buy them. So we do enforcement. We work with Christy Durich. We do alcohol stings 3 times a year. We go to every business that sells alcohol. We send them iron their purchase. We would do the same thing with the tobacco.
So the same thing, and is there success with that?
Oh, absolutely.
There was, there still is.
Yeah. I mean, we always get 15, 20, after the first one, it usually goes down. We end up with 6 to 8. But we always do compliance checks is what they are. We work with liquor, we work with tobacco.
Yeah. I'm sorry, this isn't toward you, Chief, but I'm just trying to figure out, and I see where you're coming from, it's a health thing, but by cutting 77 to 20 whatever and saying nobody else can come in, are we trying to say that there's too many alcohol establishments in town and cigarettes?
Well, we do have a restriction on those numbers as well.
But what I'm saying is, do we have too many? Is that what we're saying? Because if we start eliminating them on the transfer of permits, or not having the chief approve the permits.
Yeah, we had a pretty good debate about it at the Board of Health meeting, and actually I do recommend it, since it's on YouTube now, have a look at that meeting, because we talked about that and got board members' input, and I talked about big government, because that's of course was my big concern about it as well. And then we look at what does it cost society in the end, and so. I'm not saying there's an answer here, and that's why I kind of wanted to raise it with everybody before people are surprised by what's going on. It's a tough discussion. I mean, we are all for sure going to pay for the massive rate of vaping use right now in our youth. It is out of control. I'm not sure I know of any youth under 21 who haven't at some point tried it, and I would argue the majority of them are addicted to tobacco right now. And it's a really big problem. So the concern is the vaping, you can turn up the percentage of tobacco that you're getting to much, much higher than cigarette use. And they can get an entire pack of cigarettes from one pack, or from one puff out of a vape pen. So there's really, really big health ramifications, and that our generation didn't have to deal with, but that is happening. And so how do we help with that? Maybe big government isn't the answer. Of course, I don't like that answer. But at some point, how do we help with it? And how do we look at the dollars and cents also that it impacts us in the long run? So I don't have the perfect answer by any means, but I wanted to raise it because it's something that's being talked about. And of course, we need to talk about it as a community and what we in Middletown think is the way forward.
And I understand where you come from. Vaping's a problem. It's a huge problem. It is. But I guess I look at it as somebody who enforced for years. I'm trying to see, there's a fine line between, and I know it doesn't work, but it's a parent's job, and I know that doesn't always apply to stop a kid from vaping or keeping it. I get that, but if we just start eliminating businesses who sell this stuff, or who sell cigarettes or alcohol, man, that's a.
Is there not a list of? Do we not have a list?
We do have a list. The chief should have.
You have a list of everybody that sells it, right?
Have a list.
Is that correct or no?
I would say most of the places that sell alcohol are selling also tobacco products.
Okay, so let me ask
But
this.
we did not have a list until the Department of Health just went out recently in preparation for the tobacco retail license. We did not have a list.
So there's not a list.
I mean, we have a list of all the alcohol, and most of the alcohol places sell tobacco products. So, I mean, we do have a list of all the alcohol places selling alcohol. I mean, you could go to Walmart, you could go to anywhere.
But alcohol has restrictions in place. There are a certain number of, you have to have a permit for alcohol.
Yeah, but those same places are selling alcohol or selling tobacco too.
But that's a generalization and anecdotal. It is not a fact of.
It's a fact we have a list, because 3 years ago, I can tell you we had a list, and we would send special ops into those places 5 at a time, 10 at a time, 5 at a time, like the chief said, and we went and did that. So as far as them selling vape or selling cigarettes, I can't answer that, but I can answer that. I can tell you that the department does have a list, and they use that list. And you said it best. I mean, people that sell alcohol sell the cigarettes, they sell the vape. I don't know if cutting businesses down.
And then we're going to get into the argument of, well, if we can't transfer, can we pass it to a family member? What's the legal way to do that? And then, in my mind, so if we keep an actual checklist. And we just police it. So what makes more sense? To eliminate all these different businesses and eliminate all these jobs, or just keep a list that's a little bit more strict and do one more sting operation a year on them.
Well, and I see both sides of it.
Yeah, I do too. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm
but
just like, that's
man, dropping. I mean, you're right. There's jobs in there. You go into any of these places, there's jobs. I mean, so I don't know.
So let's say we're eliminating essentially 50 sales jobs, whatever. I mean, that's a lot of city income tax, and it's obviously not about the money here, but if we have the list anyways.
I don't know.
Just also a point of reference, Tobacco 21 didn't come into existence in the state of Ohio until Thursday, October 17th, 2019. I believe so. This is relatively new, the 21 regulation.
But I think my thing, and I could be totally wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll live with that. But what he's saying is most that sell those sell alcohol also. So if we say we want to stop the cigarettes or vapes, and that's tied in with the alcohol, then we shut down alcohol establishments too that sell those. That's what I'm saying. And so it's not just about the vape or the cigarettes. We're shutting down a business or not giving a business an opportunity to do something because of the cigarettes and the vape. So it's more, nobody just hardly, vape shops do, but most establishments sell more than that.
Well, and then I look at, and I think of people like Donnie Osborne that owns Shaddocks, or different people that own businesses that are carry in and carry outs. Well, what's the value of their business and their building now? It's just went down 30, 40, 50% because that's the value in their businesses. They have the ability to do that.
I guess that's what I mean by big government.
Yeah. I mean, you're shutting down people's livelihoods. And I'm not saying it's not a problem, but it's the truth. You really are.
And the vape is horrible. It's awful. I mean, one of my kids vapes and I get mad and I yell at him every time I see him do it and I hate it, but I don't know. I mean, they're an adult. So you're an adult, you're an adult.
Is it possible to figure out who, like, when it comes to the establishment of the tobacco retail licensing and how it's going to be done, I'd like to know, like, what the approval process is. So factually, the Board of Health does have an appetite for creating retail density. Do they have sole authority over this, or does it come to council? And I really don't know, but that would be good to know, right? Because I think if they do, then council members need to go to the Board of Health and speak their opinion.
I don't know that answer.
So maybe we could get that answer.
Yeah, we'll
and then if this may be something we want to have a joint meeting between the Board of Health and City Council about as well, because it is definitely a big deal. So I don't know unless City Council members are willing to go to Board of Health and go speak their opinions, because I think it needs to happen.
Well, we will look into it.
Okay. Great. Well, that was a
good conversation.
It is a good conversation.
I don't think it was heated. I mean, I don't think nobody's wrong in this discussion, right? I mean,
no,
it's just
really
no. There's no great answer. So another thing I had sent an email to Paul about, and maybe Paul, you could just kind of give a synopsis. But I had a few people asking. Of course, it's tax day. And those of people who've waited till the last minute, waited in long lines at Middletown and have asked, are we ever going to do something about electronically filing taxes? And you had a very good response about it. Would you care?
I actually have a little bit of additional response to that. We did do electronic tax filing for tax preparers in years past. However, one of the things I stated in that, the logistics of it just became so tough to get all the information you needed. It just became more of a burden and it causing problems than it was worth. Most cities in this area do not do electronic filing. It is very, very tough to do for a municipality.
Do most do it for preparers, though, Paul?
What's that? No, we do. We ended it.
I mean, do most do it for preparers or just?
Not that I'm aware of, and we'll check into it further. But it is very cumbersome for a city to operate that. From one of the, like what I told you, the cost of the software is very, very expensive. You know, our lines really only get long in the last couple days, in like the last 2 days, and a lot of it is, you know, people wait until the very end, the last couple days, to file their taxes. Now, you know, we have limited staff, and the staff we have do a great job, and they work well into the evening. I feel bad. I don't like seeing those lines, but
Yeah.
You know, we'll look to see what we can do better.
Well, as long as, you know, I want the citizens to understand that there are reasons why. It's not that we just are being stubborn or not willing to spend the money necessarily. Of course, if you could have as much money in the world, we would probably have it. But there are many reasons that go into it.
I think they ended it, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, in 2019, did you say? Okay, and they finally, there were so many complications with the program that Doug Atkins ended it.
Okay. Well, if any citizens have a burning desire to learn more about it, I'm happy to forward the email because Paul did put it very well with a lot of details as to why we aren't currently doing that and we're not really looking into it in the near future. Just file sooner.
That's it.
Any other new business items? Okay. We have a request to move to executive session under the authority of ORC 121.22G1 to consider the appointment of a public official, and under the authority of ORC 121.22G2 to consider the purchase of property for public purposes or for the sale of property at competitive bidding if premature disclosure of information would give an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage. Do we have a motion to move to executive?
Before we move forward, am I clear? We only need just the public official. Is that correct, gentlemen?
Oh, the second.
Yes. The second part of it we're still working on, and we don't have any further answers.
Okay, then I'll change the request. Do I have a motion under authority of ORC 121.22G1 to consider the appointment of a public official?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
And do we anticipate any voting after the executive session? Okay. Then with that, we will dismiss following the executive session, and we'll reconvene on May 2nd, Tuesday, May 2nd at 5:30 here in council chambers. Until then, blue skies over Middletown.